Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going to be talking about a guy you've probably heard of, Archimedes. We're going way beyond that whole Eureka thing and really exploring how this dude from ancient times actually changed the course of history.
You know, it's funny, right? Archimedes lived over 2,000 years ago, but his inventions and the things he discovered are still relevant today.
It's kind of wild when you think about it.
It really is. That's how you know someone was a true innovator, you know? Their ideas they totally transcend time.
Okay, so let's get into it. Paint us a picture here. Who was Archimedes? Where'd he come from?
All right, so Archimedes was born around 287 BC in Syracuse.
Syracuse.
Yeah, in Sicily.
Gotcha.
And Syracuse wasn't just some random town.
Okay.
It was like a major center for, all the intellectual and cultural stuff happening back then.
A happening place, huh?
Exactly.
So what about his, early life?
Well, there's not a ton of info out there about his childhood, but we do know that he was probably related to King Herod II.
The king, really?
Yeah, which probably explains how he got such a good education and had access to, resources and stuff,
Oh, that makes sense.
I mean, those things are super important for him to, achieve all the amazing things he did.
So it wasn't just like he was some solitary genius, toiling away in a dark corner.
Haha, no, not really. He was definitely plugged into, the whole power structure of his time.
He had connections.
Oh, yeah, big time. He was even tight with scholars all the way over in Alexandria.
Wow, Alexandria.
Yeah, think about it, like an ancient academic network, right?
I see.
Exchanging letters and stuff with other mathematicians like Conon of Samos, Eratosthenes.
B names.
Totally. Sharing ideas, debating theories, really pushing the limits of what people knew back then, all of them working together.
That's so cool. So it wasn't just him in a vacuum.
Nope. It was this whole vibrant community of, brilliant minds.
Okay, but we got to talk about the siege of Syracuse. That's when things get really interesting.
Totally. That was a huge turning point for him. It's when his genius really got put to the test.
Put to the test. How?
So imagine Syracuse is under attack by the Roman army.
Not good.
No, not at all. It was during the Second Punic War, and things were pretty intense. And here you have Archimedes, not a soldier, but a scholar and inventor, becoming a key part of the city's defense.
No way.
Yeah.
So is this where we get all the stories about catapults and stuff?
Oh, absolutely. We're talking catapults, cranes, even this crazy invention called the ship shaker. You probably know it as Archimedes' claw.
That's insane. It's kind of hard to picture a mathematician designing weapons.
Right. But it just shows you how multi-talented he was.
And he was the real deal.
But here's the thing.
What?
Yeah, it's awesome to think about these war machines and everything. But what's even more interesting is, what they tell us about him.
What do you mean?
Well, it shows that he was able to take all that theoretical knowledge, all the physics and engineering stuff he knew, and actually use it to solve real-world problems, like literally defending his city.
Oh, wow. I never thought about it like that. So he wasn't just, thinking about this stuff. He was actually applying it.
Exactly.
Pretty cool. Makes you wonder if maybe all that crazy stuff going on, with the Romans attacking and everything.
Yeah?
If maybe that, fueled his curiosity even more.
Oh, totally. I mean, think about how intense that whole situation must have been.
Right.
Facing down the Roman army.
They weren't messing around.
No, they weren't.
That might have pushed him to find, even more innovative solutions and stuff.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've seen how his inventions could, change the course of a battle.
Yep.
But what about all the other stuff he figured out? The stuff that wasn't about chucking rocks at enemy ships.
That's what we're going to get into next. And this stuff is truly revolutionary. His discoveries in science and math that, paved the way for so much of what we know and use today.
Sounds pretty important.
Oh, it is.
Let's hear it then. And hey, let's start with something everyone's heard of. Archimedes' principle. The whole Eureka moment.
Right. That's the classic story. But while the whole bathtub thing is fun, the principle itself is way more important.
So explain it to me like I'm 5. What is Archimedes' principle?
Basically, it says that when you put something in water, or any fluid really, it feels an upward force. And that force is equal to how much water that thing pushes out of the way.
Oh, okay.
Sounds simple, right?
Kind of.
But it's actually super important for understanding all sorts of stuff about how things float and how fluids behave.
Okay, I think I'm starting to get it. So a ship floats because
it pushes aside or displaces an amount of water that weighs the same as the ship itself.
Whoa, that's cool.
It is.
And a hot air balloon, it goes up because...
The helium inside is lighter than the air it pushes out of the way.
Gotcha.
This one principle explains so much, like why things float or sink. And it's been super important for developing all sorts of things, like ships, submarines, even hot air balloons.
Wow, I never realized that one idea, about things floating could affect so much of our lives, even today.
Oh, totally. It's not just some ancient theory. It's like the backbone of whole industries.
That's insane.
And that's what's so awesome about Archimedes' work. It wasn't just about theories and ideas. It was practical, useful stuff. Things that actually changed the world.
It's pretty mind-blowing.
And we're just getting started. There's so much more to Archimedes' impact on the world.
Really?
Oh, yeah. His curiosity just, took him everywhere.
What else did he get into?
Well, let's talk about engineering.
Engineering, huh?
Yeah, his understanding of levers, pulleys, and the center of gravity.
Yeah.
It was, totally groundbreaking.
Oh, yeah. I remember learning about levers in school.
Right?
They always use that quote, "Give me a lever long enough and a fulcrum on which to place it, and I shall move the world."
Yeah.
But it always seemed, kind of theoretical to me.
I know what you mean.
Did he actually use that stuff in real life?
Oh, for sure. His work is, the basis for so much of modern engineering, like how we design bridges and skyscrapers and all sorts of complex machines.
Wow, that's crazy.
It is.
So when I see, a crane lifting something super heavy or a bridge spanning a huge river,
yeah,
I can actually think about Archimedes and his understanding of, forces and stuff.
Totally.
That's pretty wild.
It is. And it goes beyond just construction, too. Think about gears and cogs.
Gears?
Yeah, the things that make machines work, like clocks and cars and even computers.
Oh, right.
Archimedes' studies of circles and spirals helped people figure out how to make gears and cogs. He even designed the system of gears for moving heavy things, like a really early version of all the complex gear systems we have today.
So from giant buildings to tiny little gears, his ideas are, everywhere.
Everywhere.
It's insane to think that, one person's understanding of, levers and stuff could have such a huge impact on, all of human invention.
And that brings us to another cool thing, astronomy.
Astronomy.
Yeah.
Stars and planets and stuff.
Exactly.
But he lived way before telescopes, right?
Oh, yeah. Long before all that fancy stuff.
So how could he even, study astronomy?
Well, he was clearly fascinated by it. And from what we know from people like Cicero.
Cicero?
Yeah, an ancient Roman writer.
Gotcha.
Cicero talked about how Archimedes built these intricate mechanisms to show how the stars and planets moved.
Whoa, really? Like a mini planetarium.
Exactly.
That's so cool.
It really is. It shows how much he knew about gears and mechanics, but also how curious he was about the universe.
I mean, the fact that someone could even build something like that back then with no computers or anything.
I know, right?
It's crazy.
But don't forget, at his core, Archimedes was a mathematician.
Right, math was his jam.
And his work in math is just as groundbreaking as his inventions, if not more so.
Okay, I'm ready for a math lesson.
All right. What's one of the most famous mathematical things you can think of?
Well, there's pi, right?
Ugo, pi.
That 3.14 whatever number.
Exactly. Everyone learns it in school.
But I don't think most people know, where it comes from or how we figured it out.
That's where Archimedes comes in.
Oh, really?
Yep. Back then, people didn't know the exact value of pi. So Archimedes came up with this really clever way to approximate it.
Okay, how'd he do that?
He used shapes called polygons.
Polygons?
Yeah, like squares and triangles, but with lots of sides.
Okay, I see.
He basically drew them inside and around a circle, getting closer and closer to the shape of the circle with each polygon.
So he's trapping pi between these shapes?
Exactly.
Oh.
And using that method, he figured out that pi is somewhere between 317 and 32071.
Wait, fractions.
Yeah, but super accurate for his time. And his work paved the way for even more precise calculations of pi later on.
It's amazing how he came up with that.
He wasn't just messing around with numbers.
Right.
He was developing methods to better understand really important math concepts.
So pi wasn't his only math victory.
Right. Oh, definitely not.
What else?
Well, he also helped us understand geometric shapes and stuff.
Geometric shapes, like squares and circles.
Yeah.
Okay.
For example, in this book, he wrote, On the Sphere and Cylinder.
On the sphere and cylinder.
He proved that the volume of a sphere is 2/3 the volume of the cylinder that fits perfectly around it.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's like geometry on steroids.
That sounds hard.
Oh, but he did it using, all sorts of geometric arguments and logic and stuff.
My brain hurts just thinking about it.
But the point is, understanding the volume of a sphere, it's actually super useful in real life, like for engineers and architects and even astronomers.
Oh, right. You can't, build a dome or calculate the volume of a planet without knowing that stuff.
Exactly.
It's cool how he was able to connect, abstract math to the real world.
He was really good at that.
But there's one more thing about him that just, blows my mind.
What's that?
His whole thing with infinity.
You're talking about the sand reckoner.
The sand reckoner.
Yeah, that's where Archimedes really went for it. He wanted to prove that you could measure the whole universe, even though it seemed infinite.
Whoa.
I know, right?
Most people wouldn't even want to think about infinity.
Exactly.
And he's trying to, measure it.
Exactly. It shows how ambitious he was intellectually, that he was willing to tackle such a huge, abstract problem.
So how did he do it?
Well, he basically came up with a way to count really, really big numbers.
Really big?
Way bigger than anything anyone had ever thought about before.
Wow.
He was showing that even things that seem infinite could be understood, at least in some way.
That's amazing. So he was an inventor, engineer, astronomer, a mathematician.
All that and more.
This guy was doing it all.
Truly one of a kind.
Okay, but there's one more piece of the Archimedes puzzle that I'm dying to hear about. The Archimedes palimpsest.
Yes, that's a great story.
It sounds super mysterious.
It kind of is. So imagine a 10th century manuscript.
A manuscript?
Yeah, like an old handwritten book.
Okay.
And this manuscript contains lost works by Archimedes, works that people thought were gone forever.
Whoa. That's awesome.
Right.
But wait, how was it lost and then found again?
It's a long story, but basically, parchment was really expensive back in the Middle Ages.
Archnet.
The stuff they wrote on.
Oh, right.
So they would sometimes recycle old manuscripts by scraping off the text.
No way.
And writing over it.
They erased Archimedes' work.
Yeah, and wrote prayers on top. It's called a palimpsest.
That's heartbreaking.
I know, right? It just shows you how easily even the greatest ideas can be lost over time.
Yeah.
But luckily, in the early 1900s, this palimpsest was rediscovered. And scholars started working to decipher the original writing underneath.
That must have been incredibly difficult. How did they even do that?
It took a lot of high-tech imaging, like using ultraviolet and X-ray photography.
Wow, so it was like a historical CSI episode.
Exactly. They were piecing together clues from the past to uncover these hidden writings.
So what did they find? Any secret inventions or something?
Not exactly inventions, but something even more important.
Well,
one of the lost works they found was called the Method of Mechanical Theorems.
The Method of Mechanical Theorems. What's that?
It's a bit complicated, but basically it describes how Archimedes solved math problems by breaking down shapes into an infinite number of tiny parts.
Whoa, infinite.
Yeah. It's a precursor to calculus, and it shows that he was thinking about these concepts centuries before anyone else.
So he's doing calculus again, but this time with a different method.
Exactly.
His brain was on another level.
It really was. The palimpsest showed us that he was even further ahead of his time than we thought. He was a true visionary in math.
It's amazing that we're still learning from him, even after all these years.
Right. It makes you wonder what other secrets might be out there just waiting to be discovered.
It's crazy to think that we're still, uncovering new things about Archimedes.
I know, right?
The palimpsest is, a perfect example of that. But what would you say, what's his biggest contribution?
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
His impact is just, so huge,
Right.
He influenced so many areas of, science and technology.
It's hard to choose just one thing.
Exactly. But if I had to pick one thing, it would be the way he connected theory and practice.
Oh, interesting. So you're saying he wasn't just, some guy stuck in his head thinking about abstract stuff?
No, not at all. He was always finding ways to use his knowledge to solve real-world problems.
Right. Yeah, we talked about the Siege of Syracuse.
Exactly. And that's a super important lesson for us today,
What do you mean?
Knowledge is only powerful if you actually use it,
To do stuff.
Yeah, to make things better, solve problems, and push the limits of what's possible.
Makes sense. So give me some examples. How do we see Archimedes' ideas playing out in the world today?
Okay, well, let's take the Archimedes screw.
The Archimedes screw, huh?
Yeah. That simple device is still used all over the world for irrigation and stuff.
Really?
Think about how important that's been for farming.
Oh, yeah.
And even today, it's used in wastewater treatment plants for generating power, even moving grain and sand.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's amazing that something he invented so long ago is still so useful.
Right.
What about his work with levers and pulleys? How's that influence stuff today?
Well, think about anything that needs to lift heavy things like cranes, elevators,
Right.
even the robotic arms they use in factories.
Oh, yeah.
All of that is based on the principles of levers and pulleys that Archimedes figured out like over 2,000 years ago.
So crazy.
He helped us understand things like force and leverage, the things you need to know to build stuff that's both safe and efficient.
Okay. What about his work on buoyancy?
Right. So Archimedes' principle, the whole thing about things floating, that's not just about ships. It's super important in fields like, oceanography and meteorology too.
Weather and stuff?
Yep. We use it to design better ships, understand ocean currents, even predict the weather.
Wow. That's amazing.
It is. It all goes back to that one simple idea, how things interact with the stuff around them, like water or air.
Okay, so what about the math stuff, like calculus and all that?
Yeah, calculus. That's huge.
It's
like one of the most powerful tools we have in science and math.
what makes it so powerful?
Well, it lets us understand how things change, how they move, how they interact in complex systems.
Oh, I see.
And then, predict what might happen in the future.
Pretty handy.
And while Archimedes didn't invent calculus exactly,
Right.
his work laid the foundation for it, especially with his method of exhaustion.
And one with the infinite shapes.
That's the one. It was like a first step toward understanding concepts like limits and integration, which are at the heart of calculus.
So he was already, thinking about calculus, even though it didn't really exist yet. Pretty amazing.
And his influence on calculus can be seen everywhere. From physics to engineering to economics to computer science, it's literally everywhere.
Mind-blowing.
It is. But, beyond all the specific inventions and discoveries,
Yeah.
I think his biggest legacy is his, attitude, his curiosity.
What do you mean?
Well, he was never satisfied with just, accepting things the way they were.
He always wanted to know more.
Exactly. He questioned everything, he experimented, he explored, and that's what led him to expand our understanding of the world in such a huge way.
That's a good point. I guess that's what makes him such an inspiring figure.
Totally. He showed us what's possible when you combine intelligence with, passion and a thirst for knowledge.
Right. It's not enough to just be smart. You got to be curious. You got to want to learn.
Exactly.
Well, I think that's a great place to wrap things up.
I agree.
We've covered a lot of ground today, but Archimedes' story is, so vast, there's always more to learn.
That's the beauty of it.
So, to everyone listening, let's all channel our inner Archimedes.
Yes.
Let's stay curious, ask questions, and never stop exploring the world around us.
Because who knows what amazing things we might discover.
Thanks for joining us for another deep dive. Until next time.